came into this opportunity. Was it a similar situation for you? Did you get that call and then, wondering if you were going to proceed with something like this? John?
For me?
Yes.
My wife you can blame my wife for this. Initially, I wasn't interested. They approached me and I said, no thanks. And my wife said, you should call them back. I'm not going to call it back. No, you should call it back. My wife has a PhD in nagging. And this goes on for like 3 days. And finally she says, you should call him back. Well, that was a good one. You've been working out? Okay, I'll call him back. So I told her, I said, no one's going to want to watch me on television. Are you out of your mind? She said, oh, they're going to watch you on television. She's been absolutely right about that. And she's in 6 years in August. That's why I introduce Kathy all the time as I introduce her as my first wife, the Mexican man. We met in high school, so we've been together all our lives. And I also introduce her as the lovely and radiant Mrs. Kenda, which also makes her mad.
We're very glad that you took on the opportunity, and Gary, we're looking forward to your show also.
Thank you.
Very similar, and
we are.
I'll say this about Gary. I met Gary today, but I've known Gary for 30 years.
So excited to be here from Colorado today. You, Joe, and I want to ask you the most important question of the day. Are you a Bronco fan or a Pittsburgh fan?
I am a Bronco fan. I've been one ever since I moved there. I'm a Steelers fan as well, but Broncos are still my number one. I've been with the Broncos through good times and bad, and then there was a time it's going to meet the sisters of the poor, but then we got a team together, and that was kind of fun, but that's what I like about Bronco fans. They're loyal to that team, and win, lose, or draw, they're loyal. And that's what I like about them. They don't love just a winner, they love that team.
How about Gary?
I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Thank y'all. My Twitter account just went down.
Okay, so real quick, just so you know, when you're fake office on the show, you have a Pittsburgh banner.
I do.
So this is for both of you. You said that in the beginning that only 2% of the population is really evil and mean, but in your world that's way different. So other than your family and your boss, what was your biggest personal motivation to continue being a homicide detective?
Seeing a mother when you tell her, seeing her fist. Seeing anybody when you tell them their loved one has been killed. I try to avoid bullet words. I wouldn't say murdered. I wouldn't say killed. I would say things like no longer alive. It's not much, but it's something. But you don't need a lot of motivation when you see someone die emotionally right in front of you. And it fills you with resolve. It did me. Whoever did this is going to pay for it. Period.
What about you, Gary?
Mine's kind of the same. I motivated myself every day, even though I'm a big, loud jokester and sometimes prankster. But when I get that call, if my victim dies at the hospital, I would take their hospital bracelet and sometimes wear it, put it on my desk. What kept me going is one day I was walking down the aisle of a grocery store, and me and Joe have these cases where you haven't solved that case, you don't want to see that person down that aisle. Coming up this aisle, this lady said, continue to do what you're doing. because you made me happy in the worst time of life. You found the killer of my son. And you think about that, because you know, we're sometimes going to bring the bad news. We're the people who knock on your door and says, you know, your son's life has been lost or died. So like Joe said, that's why we know each other for 30 years. People are going to say, how did that? Because we lived the same life for 30 years. Everybody's saying about these two great shows. They are. But we live this every day of betrayal. So we know that it takes self-motivation more than anything else to continue this day in, continue this day out. You know, when my wife doesn't see me, why were you out there? But when the news come on and you make that arrest, you can't high-five anybody, but that gives me motivation to say, I told you, I was gonna get you. So it's a lot of self-motivation.
Thanks, guys. I have a lot of respect for both of you and what you did.
Thank you.
Thank you both for all the work you've done. Lieutenant Kennedy kind of alluded to this earlier, the Cisneros case. You consider that one a solved one or unsolved one?
I consider it solved,
Good.
absolutely solved.
And that was the case where a pregnant woman and her 2 children were killed, but there was a gullible jury and they let the guy off.
He played the God card and the jury and it worked. He took the stand, said, as God is my witness, I didn't do it. And in the face of overwhelming physical evidence, they agreed with him. But less than a year later, somebody threw him out of the 12th floor window of an apartment building in Brooklyn. I have an alibi. He didn't bounce so good. NYPD called me and they sent me a Polaroid picture of him on the sidewalk. So we understand this guy walked, 3 counts of murder, 1 in your jurisdiction. I said, yeah, he did. What should we do with this case? I said, you should put it in the head of coming file. And that case remains unsolved. Things happen.
Huge fan. Huge fan. You know that. A question for both of you. First of all, I think it would be helpful for folks to know, Joe, how close you were to maybe sort of giving up this life. That first time you got a call and saw your first body. You talk about it on the podcast, but I think you should share a little bit of that. And then for Gary, and I'll sit down. Gary, look, I want you to talk about how we bridge communities here. And I'm talking about underserved communities and how we do something to patch up this relationship between those underserved communities and police, because we need them all working together. But Joe, why don't you start?
I'll start. I was a young policeman in uniform, pushing a cruiser. My whole motivation was to be a homicide detective. I had a plan. I was going to go do this job. I was going to work hard, do good reports, get a good reputation going, make application to investigations, and hopefully move into homicide, the area of my desire. I've been a policeman for about 20 minutes. We get a call about a dead body found in an apartment building in July, 3rd floor apartment. A 19-year-old Hispanic female shot herself in the mouth with a handgun. She's been dead approximately 4 days. We walk in the first dead body I ever saw in my life. I hadn't even been to a funeral. I've never saw him. This is, as they say, a decom. We all know what that, he and I know what it means, but I didn't know what it meant. I walk in that place, my heart is going like a trip hammer. My mouth is so dry I can't talk. I can't even breathe. The older cops are looking at me, and what's the matter, Kevin? Smell something bad. And they all laugh. And I'm thinking, you bastards, how could you feel? And I was like, and I went back and I sat in my car and I'm shaking and I'm thinking, Kendall, maybe you need a new plan. maybe this isn't for you, you know, and I was up all night. I thought about it all night, and I went back to work the next day, and I looked at that microphone. They're calling me on the air, asking me if I'm in service, you know. And it's that moment. It's like, okay, you pick up the mic, you pick it up, because here we go again. Here we go. And you say, yeah, that's my plan.
For me, I had a supervisor by the name of Larry Snyder. He was a tough guy in Charlotte, North Carolina. Nobody liked him. He was one-directional, and that was always right. So my career, he taught me how to not to see race, not to see color, not to see economic status in life. You work in a homicide case. That victim has a mother, and that victim has a father. The father may not be in their life, the mother may not be in his life, but you still have a job to do to provide that investigation, just like every investigation. So that's why you would hear me say, I worked the $5 murders and I worked the $1 million murders, because I have. But where I was unique, that I treated every victim's family the same, whether it's from the poor side of the city or the rich side of the city, and that helped my career. And then, as my career went on, I found out that there was a lot of problems in America with communities of color versus law enforcement. So that's kind of been my platform of bridging that gap between people of color and law enforcement, because we're in troubled times. Whether you want to realize it or not, we still have those times, and Baltimore and Ferguson are two names that we will always remember. And so I think that for me, it brings me to a point where if I'm on a national platform, I'm still going to bridge that gap. While we were filming these episodes, in 2015, I created something called Cops and Barbers. Now, for my African-American men in the community here today, we know a barbershop is the absolutely pinnacle of conversation every day. So we took cops and barbers and became a catalyst in the community. We started in February 2015. No notebooks, we had one meeting, no documentations. When they saw that, the president had already launched 21st century community policing. Believe it or not, we got a call and we spoke at the White House 5 months after we created this thing. So I believe that my job now, with being with ID and being with all this, is to still try to help bridge the gap in America between the communities of color and law enforcement. Because here's what we're going to see. Whether you love me or not, or who I have fans, guess what? You're going to love me not because I'm black. You're going to love me because I'm a good cop and I was on the show. And I think it's the same thing for we call our Lieutenant LTs for LT here. You love him because he was a good cop. And then that's what we want America to see. Don't see you. For today, guess what? Nobody saw color. All you saw is that you love ID, you love the show, and you love cops. If we can always think like that, we won't have the violence between the races and law enforcement. And people say, why you always talk about cops? Because you know how difficult it was for me to watch Ferguson and Baltimore. And then what community could I speak in? If I spoke in the African American community, then I'm Uncle Tom. And then if I spoke in the white community, you didn't want me. So this is why I think that the platform I have now that could help bridge those gaps of America. And we will have this room filled next year with everybody, all colors and races.